You very much. I'm sure you have heard a lot about it. The U.S. investigations, let's see how they go and what the result is. But here in Ghana, what our attention was drawn to was the questions of what we have now heard were some inaccuracies. We have heard official information from the government suggesting that the Iranian government or its spokesperson, the claims they made that this plane was chartered by the Presidential Office of Ghana and that it was carrying a high Ghanaian delegation is not correct. Suggestions also that they came there to deal with some bilateral relations between Ghana and Iran, it's all not correct. Then we got to know EMP, engineers and planners, who have come forward to say, yes, this plane indeed belongs to us. It is held in trust for us by the Utah Bank in America, but we did not flout any regulation by using it. We did, in fact, use it. We did not flout any regulation. We are told that it was a purely private commercial business trip. So what makes it news now in Ghana? Goku.
We journalists love news, whether good or bad. So really, as for putting, and you could see the CNN report, quite a lot of speculation. Right. Could be credible, but speculative.
Yeah, it had been speculated earlier in one of the, I think, New York Times,
yeah,
that the president has flown on this plane.
Where is the evidence? They speculated that the plane was in Davos at the same time the president was there.
Correct.
Yes, that plane was in Davos, indeed. Ibrahim Muhammad was at the summit. That summit is not only presidents who attend. I'm sure you know that. Businessmen were there. I'm told he was invited by a Swiss company. And indeed, he was dealing more with the Liberian presidential delegation than the Ghanaian one, because he has business in Liberia. So the fact that the plane, there was this coincidence of Ghanaian president being in Davos and that plane being in Davos, so you link the two is just...
We're initially told, the report was also denied that you had a high government delegation. But you have also disclosed that there was one such person.
Yes, I'm wondering why he's
at the presidency.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Even though we are told that he traveled on his private capacity.
So I'm told too. But why is he quiet? Dr. Mustafa Ahmed is a member of parliament and a minister of state. I think
he's responsible for this SADA matters.
Yes, and I'm told the Iranians have a hospital in his constituency. He should tell us why he was on the trip. I'm told it wasn't official. But I see, maybe he thinks he can treat this with the usual, you know, I don't careism. But I think that no, when issues are raised, if you talk, and you talk with facts, it helps to dampen the pressure. So the silence, the loud silence of Dr. Mustafa Ahmed is not helpful in this matter. But my own checks last night, from the U.S. side, the bank has not been contacted by any investigative agency, and they have not been asked to ask the EMP any questions.
Okay.
The EMP, as we speak, has not been contacted by any U.S. investigative agency. Nothing has happened relative to that.
Right.
So from the U.S. side, I don't see much happening relative to the speculations that created the impression they may be investigated. I'm sure perhaps they've done their checks and are satisfied with the situation, that it didn't really violate any U.S. sanctions or UN sanctions. That's the way I see it.
Right.
And the least, how would we know? Why should the Iranians be those to tell me that the presidency has chartered a plane? How would they know that?
Okay. Now, I'll come back to you briefly to tell me what you think could be, if any, implications subsequently because of the UN sanctions on Iran and the fact that the plane was found there and it's from Ghana and it is linked to Ghana and is doing business there. But, Mr. Aikoto, if it is the case that, number one, it was chartered by Ghana's presidential office, and so what? If it is the case that really, and we have confirmed, EMP also have admitted that, yes, that is ours. It is held in trust for us by the Utah Bank. And so if they leased it or what, so what?
I think the issue is not so much about what Ghanaians think. The issue has to do more with the U.S. government. The U.S. has a trusty relationship with Iran, and they have sanctions in place. And you just cannot fly an American a plane into Iranian airspace. I mean, it could have been shot down even. So what they are saying is that how come that we have this flag, flying on a plane, which indicates that it's an American plane landing in the airport of Iran? That is why they were raising the issues, as somebody flouted the law. They have what they call executive orders. And there must be, I believe there's an executive order in place that, look, we're not going to do business with these people. That if you want to do business, if you want to go to Cuba, ask for permission and things will permit you. But to see that an American plane had landed on the airstrip in Iran raised the issue, and that's why CNN took it up. Kweku is saying that his checks show that they have not been contacted. I don't think that the investigations are done in the open. I mean, these are investigations ongoing. So until they finish...
No, you're not getting my drift. And so let me clarify.
Okay.
If they were investigating, obviously the Bank of Utah will be contacted because they are at the center of it. The EMP will be contacted, if not by the Americans, by the Bank of Utah for some details. I'm saying, as at last night, none of these things had happened.
Well,
that's what I said.
What I'm saying is that the FBI have a way, they have their own ways of doing things. And what I think the reporters were talking about is calling for an investigation as to what might have happened, how the executive orders of America were broken, if you like, breached, and for the plane to have gone there. That is the newsworthy aspect of it. Of course, it's also brought to the fore the fact that the plane actually is being held in trust for Ibrahim. All we know is that he has a plane. We don't know that this plane actually flies an American flag. It is for the first time that we are now being told that, in fact, it's being held in trust for him. And perhaps when he needs it, then they release it. And
that particular Utah Bank, we are told, specializes in that, and it has over 1,000 such, trust in respect of airplanes for.
Well, America believes in a lot of agency work. Almost every time there's somebody acting as an agent for somebody, they're collecting money here and there. So, well, these are only the issues. But as to whether the president's a high-ranking officer was on that plane, it's neither here nor there.
Isn't there speculation, and we ought to wait to see whether there's a confirmation of that or not, that the president traveled on it? That's the speculation in the American news media. And then you have also the Iranian news agency suggesting that there had been series of meetings with Iranian officials focused on expanding bilateral ties and cooperation. Isn't that a danger? Supposing that were confirmed, isn't that a danger for our diplomatic relations?
Well,
knowing that the sanctions are in.
Not necessarily. We still do business with Iran. So not necessarily. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the president has a presidential jet, which I think President Kufuor bought. And he uses it as and when he needs it. And so I don't think that the president needs the use of any other jet. He has a presidential jet, which he can use anytime he wants to travel. Of course, if a delegation is going to Iran and they need a plane, and therefore they go and see Ibrahim, can you lease us your plane to use? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Mr. Minister, again, when the U.S. federal agency, speculates, and they say that the president has traveled on it.
Was it the U.S. agency?
I said it was seen in Davos.
That's the New York Times. That's the New York Times report. The New York Times reports that the federal agents of the U.S. had believed that the president had been transported on the jet. The question I'm asking is that brings Ghanaians ought to know if that's really happened. They ought to know why the president travels on that jet, and if it was leased or whatever. I mean, how much of their money is going into it? Is that not why perhaps they are a bit concerned? Some are a bit concerned.
When I heard this story, this is it's just too much fuss about nothing, really. I mean, if there's anything at all, it is to do with this Utah Bank, who actually are believed to be Americans and ought to know what the sanctions the Americans have with the Iranians, and that before the plane gets to that place, obviously these things would have been checked.
Right.
It just happened that they are creating links here with the president's, you know, a business that happens to be owned by the president brother. But I think all this speculation about the president had been on the plane and all that, I don't think it's true. The president has a presidential jet.
Right.
You know, he can travel with that presidential jet as and when he chooses.
Right.
And I have not heard anywhere where he had gone and leased any plane. So I think people are just trying to, you know, make a fuss about.
Even if he had leased a plane, what's the big deal about that?
Disclosure, if you are asked.
Yes. I mean, you would expect that. You know, we would have known this. You know, these things.
Yeah. Right.
And but you see, it is not us to to talk about whether the plane was meant to be in Iran or not. This is Utah Bank's business to tell the American authorities why they are playing, whether it is in trust or whatever was doing in Iran when the country clearly had sanctions.
Right. Now, Doc,
it has nothing to do with Ghana.
the government side has said this was for a private, trip, and if there was a minister in it, it was on a private, journey. EMP has come forward to say that that plane, which is theirs, flouted no international aviation regulations when it entered the Iranian airspace. Should that not end the matter?
Yeah, I think it should. I mean, generally, but like you said, there are other interest issues that arise when the issue of this jet is mentioned, and so you will not expect that it just flies with the wind, as the matter really is. And if you listen to the report, you will notice clearly that the reporter is actually talking about U.S. Sanctions regime, and it's talking about Americans and not Ghanaians, and the rules can only be flouted by Americans and not Ghanaians. That is just one. Secondly,
that you have a relationship with them, that's the important thing.
Yeah, I'm making a point there. Secondly,
they give you a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, there are, like people are saying, we have a lot of other bilateral relationships that we have with Iran. We have a running embassy in Iran, which is very effective, which interacts with the Iranian administration without any qualms, without any problems. Again, if you watch, we have a Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. This is the ministry that leads our diplomatic relationships with any other country. And if there was anything to do with bilateral or diplomatic or for that matter integration issues, you would expect the minister in charge of foreign affairs and regional integration to be part of or head deputy. That's on one side. Again, you see, the information the news has given out is giving us a trail of that particular jet at certain points and trying to link it to a possible usage by the president.
Right.
But my personal checks have clearly shown that these venues also had the presidential jet present, and so you
checked? You have also checked. Where did you check?
No, I mean, yeah,
right.
It was a Ghanaian journalist.
Right.
Yeah, in Davos, the presidential jet was present. In London, the presidential jet was parked.
Okay.
You understand? So it clearly shows that indeed the president was at the venue, but he used his official jet.
Coincidence.
And, I mean, So they need both information. If you are tracing and making linkages, you need to also check whether this particular person's vehicle was parked. If you saw my wife's car parked in front of Joy FM, you ought to check whether my own personal car is also parked before you can make a conclusion that I'm using my wife's car.
Okay.
So I mean, that is the issue.
Much ado about nothing.
Seriously, like everybody is saying.
Not all Ghanaians think so.
We don't have a problem with Iran as a country. We are free nation.
That point you have made.
We are independent. That's the point I'm reiterating. And so people should not be scared or worried that America could get worked out or concerned that a Ghanaian, even if indeed it's a diplomatic team that went on the jet. It's not a big deal.
All right.
Yeah, no, but I don't think we should just sweep everything under the carpet.
I had some exchanges with some friends on social media, and I think Kofi Bentil called my attention to the point that there's also a UN. I didn't know that, I have to be honest. There's a certain level of UN sanctions applying against Iran.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, but that sanction
now
does not
we need
include
to determine whether indeed whatever
I'm saying
that sanction does not include flying a U.S. plane.
Yeah, I don't know the details, but I'm just saying that we need to
clearly and authoritatively, the UN sanctions that applies to Iran is strictly related to the nuclear program.
Okay.
You understand? And so the usage of American flight and American business people dealing with Iran is purely an American
Didn't you
So
hear the federal officers speak about the fact that there was a need to take some permit before you can fly
that is if it is an American that is using.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, but this flight was being used by Ghanaian.
Okay.
But we do business. We do business with Iran. I mean, I haven't heard anywhere where the UN has
whether Ghana has
no, you see, the point
deposits.
Are
we exporting uranium now? I don't think we have commercial.
The point I want to make is that you see, the plane itself has been a very controversial thing. As at the time we were having difficulties with the merchant bank issue. And therefore, it's something that can easily attract
but that
attention.
was an unnecessary intrusion.
No. I'm saying
somebody has a plane.
Well, if he has a plane and he's unable to pay his jet fares, people wonder. I mean, how do you take money to go and buy plane and things like that? But I'm saying that for this particular issue, perhaps it is a non-issue. It's more of an American matter. But the fact that somebody owns a plane, a private jet in Ghana.
I'm sure there are companies who own assets more expensive than planes and
those are issues that.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen.